What is going on, all you wonderful A-plusers out there? It is I, Stuart, here once again with another live viewer questions video. A little bit frustrated because I literally just recorded this video a minute ago. However, I discovered that there was an issue with the audio, so now I have to do this whole recording all over again, unfortunately. But you know what? That is life. We're moving past it, and we're going to go ahead and move on to these questions. Now, I'm going to not be reading these questions all the way through, only because I just read all of them. So I'm going to be paraphrasing all 5 of these questions. So basically, these are going to be the 5 questions we didn't finish up last Sunday during A+ Hero Report. So I'm going to be finishing them up for you guys right now. So let's get into it. First question is going to come from Kenny, and his first paragraph basically talks about how the last holiday, Kenny has binged all of Power Rangers Beast Morphers, and talking about how it was really cool that Beast Morphers essentially had a really big connection to the past seasons, which is something that you don't really get to see in a lot of other Power Ranger seasons. A lot of Power Ranger seasons tend to be so self-contained, you almost forget that it's part of a bigger universe. They then go on to say in their second paragraph that while they enjoyed Beast Morphers for what it was, they also weren't the biggest fan of the writing, mostly when it came to the crossover being like very underwhelming, and how Blaze and Roxy had their human counterparts in season 2, and yet the writers seemed to do absolutely nothing with them, and so it just kind of felt very much like an underwhelming season. And to wrap it all up, in their third paragraph, they ask, what do I kind of prefer when it comes to Power Ranger storytelling, like what they currently do, which is a new self-contained storyline every season, or going back to the Zordon era where you had multiple seasons essentially just being one continuous storyline. And to that I say I think they both did it really well. I can't really say I have a preference to one or the other. Like, I love the Zordon era, even though it had a few rough patches here and there. I do think the good definitely outweighed the bad, and I think it led to, and I think the buildup I think was amazing for the way they ended things. But that being said, when they went from the Zordon era to the post-Zordon era, with Power Rangers Lost Galaxy and so forth, they ended up producing a lot of really good seasons that we wouldn't have gotten if it ended up being like one continuous story. It also would have been really weird to kind of see how they could have taken the characters from Power Rangers Lost Galaxy and milked them for an entire 5 seasons. To me, I feel like most of the shows that we got from Power Rangers, and it might just be because a lot of them ended up being like 40 episodes long, so they told as much story as they needed to, but they all felt like they were good as one-off seasons. But with the exception of a couple like Time Force and maybe a couple from the Disney era, it would be a bit of a challenge to see where the story would have gone after they wrapped themselves up. But nonetheless, I do think both ways they tried telling stories in Power Rangers worked in their own way, and I would be curious, going into the new Power Rangers reboot with Jonathan Entwistle, how they're going to be moving the franchise forward now, with them, essentially keeping one continuous story going, because I think it's safe to assume that they're not going to be changing up the team every season once they try to go for an older audience. So the next question comes from George, and George is asking us what we thought of Black Panther 2, specifically Namor in Black Panther 2, and whether or not we would consider Namor and Killmonger to be villains. For me personally, yes, I would definitely consider them to be villains, but I would not consider them to be evil. So the way I look at it is that if you're willing to cross a specific line, and that line is harming innocent people to achieve your own selfish goals, or not necessarily selfish goals, they may be like very good goals, but regardless, if you're willing to harm innocent people that have nothing to do with your conflict in order to achieve your goal, to me, that makes you a villain. Even if your intentions are good, that's still a line that you cross, and to me, that's where I would say that you're not an anti-hero, you're straight up a villain. But that being said, because they both had motives in which you can definitely sympathize with them, I wouldn't call them evil. I would say you're evil when, like, you have no sympathetic motive to you. You're just evil for the sake of being evil. But you know, that's just my opinion. Everyone has their own ideologies of the difference between good and evil, right and wrong, villains versus heroes. That's just kind of the way I personally decide to look at it. So our next question comes from Abase, and basically in their first paragraph, they talk about how Mighty Morphin Mutants is one of their favorite evil Power Rangers episodes, and they talk about how Turbo kind of reused this idea when Rygog would use his scanning device on the Rangers and used it to create Shadow Rangers. Basically, in the second paragraph, they ask, with the exception of Evil Tommy, what are some of our favorite evil Power Rangers within the show's run? And I would say my two answers. One would be the Psycho Rangers. I'd say that because debatably, you know, you could say Darkonda was like one of the most evil characters within Power Rangers, possibly like the biggest threat in Power Rangers, and it took, you know, several seasons of build up to really defeat him. And to me, I feel like the Rangers would never have been able to get there, would never have been able to defeat Darkonda if it hadn't been for, you know, the Psycho Rangers really pushing them to new levels. To me, that was where the Rangers really evolved, was during the Psycho Ranger arc. I love that it took multiple episodes to take them all down, and I kind of like how each of the Psycho Rangers, even though they started out being all exactly the same, I kind of like how they all developed their own personalities later on, and I love the fact that that gets expanded on in the comic book universe. I also want to give an honorable mention to A Squad from Power Rangers SPD. I love how it was hinted at from the beginning of that season, and I also really enjoy the fact that they're just an evil group of Rangers that weren't even mind controlled. They were just really cowards who wanted to be on the winning side of the war. And I love how it came from the team that had been built up the entire season, and we were led to believe that they are the real like SPD Rangers, you know, that kind of thing. All right, so the next question comes from Alexander. For me, it was when Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue, when the Rangers were battling the Titanium Ranger. The Rangers first acquired the V-Lancer weapon used on them. Titanium Ranger was face down on the ground after that devastating blast, but survived it. He got back up on, and his visor was open. Wait, what? Sorry. He got back up and his visor was open, explain his face. Okay, the Rangers were about to shoot him again, but when they were about to, Captain Mitchell at the nick of time begged them not to fire and end him. Then, when the Rangers returned to the headquarters to confront him as to why he stopped them from destroying the Titanium Ranger, Captain Mitchell told them that the Titanium Ranger was his son Ryan. Ryan ended up hating him and his family because of all the lies Diabolico put in that his father let Ryan fall when they were hanging on the cliff after a terrible car crash, in favor of Dana being the safe. In favor of Dana being safe when both were in danger when they were kids. That was a pretty sad storyline. So the reason I read that one all the way through is because I just realized as I was looking through these questions that I actually skipped Alexander in the first video. So I'm really glad I actually did forget to record the audio in my first video, because now I remembered to get to this question. And yeah, that was definitely a really good, really intense moment for the show. Admittingly, the special effects for that moment don't hold up as well as I remember them looking when I was a kid, but I did think it was a really sweet moment, especially with how the episode ended, with this time it being Ryan, or with the dad saving Ryan's life this time, but as they are adults. So I thought that was a really, really good episode, and I guess there wasn't really much of a question there, but I will agree with you that that was an awesome moment in Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue. The last question, or I guess 3 questions, come from Doomsday. Question number 1 is, what excites you most about the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers? once and always. And to that, I would say the mystery. What do I mean by the mystery, you may ask? Well, the fact that we know very little about the special going into it. The number one thing that we do know about the special is that, of course, Trini's daughter is going to be a character in it. The flying car is going to be back, and apparently there's going to be a character called Robo Rita, who's going to be Rita but a robot, which I don't know how I feel about that, because I have to really see how that's done in execution. On paper, that sounds really, really dumb for so many reasons, but again, execution, I might have a completely different opinion, so I'll have to wait and see. But the fact that we don't know what this big threat is, unless it's Robo Rita, which I really hope Robo Rita isn't the only threat in this special, but the fact that we don't know who this big threat is, we don't know what it is that's bringing the original team back, that's what's intriguing me the most. And I love the fact, of course, everything else excites me, having the whole cast and crew back. I mean, obviously with some exceptions, but getting to see Billy and Zach back for the first time in years, it makes me okay with the fact that we're not getting every Ranger back, because the fact that we got David Yost and Walter Jones in this shows that they at least tried to get as much as they could out of this special, and that really, really excites me. So question number 2. Do you like the brand new Cosmic Fury suits, and do you like that Amelia is our first full season female Red Ranger, unlike Lauren, who is only a female Red Ranger for the final 5 episodes of Super Samurai? And to that I say, I do like that she's the Red Ranger. I know in the podcast, I kind of said that I wasn't sure about it. I take that back. I do actually think it's really cool that she's the Red Ranger. And looking at some of the tweets that Simon Bennett has said and listening to some of the things behind the scenes that might be going on, I think there is a lot of really cool potential going into this season. Very curious how it's all going to be done in only 10 episodes. As for the costume, I kind of gave my thoughts during the podcast, and for the most part, I'm sticking with them. Not my favorite, but I'm going to wait until I see a trailer before I really judge them. And then the last question from Doomsday. Do you feel bad for The Rock? Because he's been fighting for a decade and a half to make Black Adam possible, and fighting to get Henry Cavill back as Superman. And now with the sudden shift in the DCEU, all that has basically been flushed down the toilet. And to answer your question, no, I do not feel bad for Dwayne Johnson. That dude is a billionaire. He can get over it. Joking aside, though, the truth is, this is just the world of business. Yes, he spent like a decade trying to get Black Adam to happen and trying to get Henry Cavill back as Superman. I'm not trying to say he was ever lazy or he was ever phoning it in. He worked extremely hard to make this all happen. So I will definitely acknowledge that. You can tell he definitely wanted a big leadership position in the DC universe going forward. So I definitely got to give it to him. He went through to he did a lot of work to really show that he knew what he was doing, and to show that he had what it took to be kind of one of the executive producers of the DC universe going forward. That being said, he kind of failed, honestly. Black Adam wasn't that great of a movie, and unfortunately the box office numbers kind of show. I don't blame DC for not really wanting to go in his direction that he tried to move the DC universe to. I don't blame them for wanting to kind of go in their own direction. I think that if Black Adam had actually done as well as DC was hoping for, they might have been a little more open to his ideas for the DC universe going forward, and there would have been a bigger chance of them keeping Henry Cavill. However, I think the low box office numbers are kind of what really, drove the decision forward to give the DC universe a full-on reboot. And again, it's just business. Dwayne Johnson took a huge gamble with this movie, and unfortunately he failed, and that's just life. I wish him the best of luck with any other future projects he may have going on, and I wouldn't be opposed to seeing him play Black Adam, going forward in the future of the DC universe. Like, if they want to bring him back, I know that in this DCU reboot, it seems like they might be bringing back some of the actors from the DCEU into the DCU. So if Dwayne Johnson ends up being one of those actors that they bring back, I'm all for it. I'd love to see how he does going forward. But that all being said, that answers the last question. So that will do it for today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I will try to be back on Sunday for A+ Hero Report. However, I will be out of town, so I can't 100% guarantee that I will be there this Sunday. But if I'm not there this Sunday, I will definitely be there the Sunday afterwards. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel. But of course, guys, above all, don't forget to keep it A+, and I will talk to you all later. Goodbye.